Okay, a few quick announcements, and then we will get into the feature presentation of the night. So it is getting to be the end of the year, so pay attention for an announcement for the holiday party. We're figuring out what we're going to be doing, but we'll try to get that together within the next month or so to get the details out to everyone. So keep an eye out for that stuff. Also, elections, if people are interested in elections of any kind, people wanting to be on the board, obviously email any of us. Comp or mini comp. So we'll have our normal mini comp after the feature presentation for tonight, and going with the October spooky theme of night dive. So photos from night dives. In November, we're kind of continuing with a spooky trend and going with shadows. So that will get us through the rest of the year. And in December, we'll do mini comp of the year and mini comp photographer of the year. So only one more month of submissions to go. So with that, I think that's all the announcements I have for tonight. We will get into our feature presentation. So tonight we have Arnie Warshinsky talking about diving around Hawaii and Oahu. So Arnie has been a member of Aquatutus, which is how we came to Arnie for a presentation, because I think he did this presentation for them and Helga had suggested having you do a presentation for us. So with that, as usual, keep yourself muted during the presentation. Unless you have questions, feel free to unmute and ask questions, but then just remute yourself afterwards. So with that, we will welcome Arnie. Thank you.
Hi, I was honored to be asked to give a talk to such an illustrious and competent group of photographers. I've known about NCUPS since '96. Figure it all out yourselves. I guess everybody can see the screen.
Yes, we can.
So I thought I would put our state fish on the beginning chart with me, and there's a test later on whether or not you can pronounce its name. It goes humu humu nuku nuku apua. Got that? No. Diving on Oahu, which is what I was asked to cover, is island-wide. But there's not so much on the windward side of the island. The windward side of the island is this area here. And there are no commercial harbors. That's one reason why. And long, shallow flats out to the fringing reefs. That's another reason why. There's some, not much. So what I'm going to do is talk about diving kind of from here, the blowhole, all the way around to this area here. This is called the North Shore. Has anybody ever been to Hawaii? Did you go diving?
I have dove all or many of the islands, but not Oahu. So I'm very interested to hear about this.
I dove Oahu, but it was like really early in my diving career, and I don't remember very much about it.
Yeah, I should point out that I got certified in Monterey, so I understand the visibility issues. You don't have visibility, we do.
I dived Maui a lot and Big Island.
Okay. Good diving in the Big Island. Some facts about Hawaii. We have a lot of the United States coral reef, most of it, in fact. There are almost 700 species of endemic fish that only live in Hawaii. But I gotta admit that sometimes those are nuances that are only understandable by a biologist. They kind of look the same in different places. 25% of the fish and coral here are only found in Hawaii. And that's because we're so isolated. We're the most isolated archipelago in the world. So I'm going to take you on this underwater photo journey around our island. And I'm going to go like I showed on the map, clockwise, starting with the Halona blowhole at the top of the list and ending up at Pupukea down at the bottom. Pupukea is Hawaiian for white shell. More commonly, it's called Shark's Cove. Okay. And there are more dive sites than I've listed. This is a little shot of the Halona blowhole. It's the beach. It's where you enter in. You enter in kind of where these people are. And I don't know how many people have ever seen the movie From Here to Eternity. There's this wonderful love scene over, I think it's Burt Lancaster and Deborah Kerr. And when you see the movie, it looks like it's this huge expanse of nice sandy beach. It's a really dinky beach, and the magic of wide angle photography made it look big in the movies. So that's this area. And I'm showing a long spine porcupine fish. Halona also has a lot of frogfish, and they, of course, are masters of camouflage. And every now and then I take a picture of something, and then when I do the photo editing back at home, I find something else in the image that I didn't even know was there when I took the shot. And these two shrimps are examples of that. And I couldn't even, I've tried to identify them with some of the online guides, and I've not been successful. But there they are. We have two kinds of flounders. The peacock flounder is the most prevalent. It's the one with the blue on it. And does everybody know how flounders migrate their eyes across their body as they mature? They start off like a normal fish, and then they slowly move as they grow. The next site along the way is called Lanai Lookout. It's very popular for whale watching. And it's called the Lanai Lookout because if you're there and it's a clear day, you can actually see the island of Lanai, which is right around Maui. And sometimes you can see Maui behind it. Anyway, these are a couple of frogfish at the lookout. To get onto this dive site, you cross you park in the lookout, you go across the road, down to a drainage ditch, through a hole that's been blasted through the lava underneath the road. Then you can't keep going because if you do, you'll fall 20 feet straight down. So you go to your right, scramble up the lava face, inch your way around, and then slowly work your way down. There've been a couple of footholes notched into the lava. You get down and now you walk around on the moss slippery lava face till you get to this peninsula. And from the spot where you jump off, it's 10 feet to the water, 30 feet to the sand. And once you go in, you're not getting out that way. So you're committed to the dive at that point. It's a lot of fun. I can't do it anymore. It's just too hard for me.
So are you going to tell us how you get out?
You go across the face, swim across the face, and then there's you got to know where to look for it. And there's a way to get to a little inlet. You go through there and get out, and then you inch your way across the lava. There's one spot where the lava is about almost a foot, and there are rocks down on the left and a lava face up on the right. Once you get past that, it's just a matter of switchbacking up and not slipping on the sand.
Okay.
It's a lot of fun. There are plenty of nudibranches all over, and the challenge to me, which got promoted by photography, nobody cared what the name of the nudibranch was until you started showing pictures of them. And everybody wanted to know what's its name. So I've spent time looking up its local name, Tom Smith's nudibranch, and then its scientific name. Moving down to the Waikiki area, there's a site very popular with tourists because that's where the boats go in the morning. The real destination for this dive is the YO-257, which is a sunken Navy ship. It was sunk on purpose. I suppose this one was as well, in order to provide something to see for the Atlantis submarine tours. So Atlantis Submarine bought the wrecks, towed them out, sunk them. You're not allowed to moon the submarine. That's an explicit edict. This is 40 yards away. The second wreck, it's called the San Pedro. And this is me taking a picture of Dean, who is taking a picture of me in the wreck. The other wreck that's popular is the Sea Tiger. This was purchased by a competitor to the Atlantis submarines who went out of business, but the wreck is still there. Sea Tiger is a Chinese refrigerator merchant ship, merchant freighter, that was confiscated by the Coast Guard for running illegal immigrants, sold at auction, renamed, taken out here and sunk. This is a picture from the engine room. And the top side of the ship is the pilot house. And it's got a couple things. One, sitting right here is a slipper lobster. And then looking out through the windows of the pilot house. Moving up on our journey, there's a spot where, are you familiar with Harlequin shrimp? They love this sea star. And when you find amputated sea stars, that's when you start looking for the Harlequin shrimp, because they cut off a couple of the legs, haul them back to where they're living, and then eat them. So this is out on a concrete block that was holding the boat channel marker. We call them stonefish. They're a scorpion fish. The dorsal spines are poisonous, and the biggest problem is accidentally stepping on them because they're not quite as good as frogfish, but are still really good at camouflage. They taste great. You wrap them in tin foil and steam them on the barbecue. Just got to be careful when you fillet around the spines. White spotted pufferfish. I always am fascinated by the eyes of all the pufferfish. This is called a white mouth, for obvious reasons, moray eel. And a leaf scorpionfish. This was almost 4 inches long, and I've seen them white, red, yellow, purple, and black. These guys are also popular in sandy areas. They're razorfish, and when they get spooked, they just dive headfirst into the sand and they disappear for about 5 to 10 minutes. How they know where there are no rocks is beyond me. These are puppy dogs of the sea, white-tipped reef sharks. It's our most popular shark. They don't go around biting people. Very, very skittish. And you find them usually in overhangs trying to sleep through the day. They're more active at night. Soldier fish. This is called a black spot nudibranch. And this is probably an example of the most popular photographic subject in the Hawaiian Islands. People love to see pictures of turtles. I've got friends who sell their photographs at various shows. 90% of their sales are turtles. Next site around is Horseshoe Reef. Most people get to it from a boat, but you can get into it from the shore. You just have to be good on air. This is a dragon moray eel. I found it by accident. Actually, I saw a marble shrimp, which is not in this image, but was what attracted me. And by the time I got there, the marble shrimp went away and the dragon moray came out. And we have baby frogfish. And this is the boat mooring line. Give you an idea of what we call poor visibility. The pipe is an old sewer pipe that heads straight south from the shore. The shore is a big green mound of what used to be a sewage treatment plant. And they just buried the whole thing. And the pipes itself were completely overgrown. A lot of life on them. The problem is when I see tourists, they seem to be on a race. And they want to get to the end of the pipe and back as soon as possible. And they miss all the good stuff. Kahe Point Beach Park is our breakwater. So most of the open water classes that are taught from the shore are taught here. Most new divers will start their diving here. There's a lot of stuff to see. There's also a pair of pipes, 8 foot in diameter, that carry the hot water effluent from the waste pond of the adjacent electric plant. So this side is also called Electric Beach. And the fish love it, the turtles love it, and so do octopus, apparently. Sometimes finding the marine life is too much of a good thing. This is me trying to take a picture of one lousy butterfly fish, and they just kept enveloping me. And a friend of mine took the picture of me trying to take the picture. You can see I wear gear from your area. That's Otter Bay wetsuits. And this is a monk seal on another day. If you go further out, not where the let me back up. The water is roiled up because these are the outflows of the 2 pipes that I mentioned. So there's hot water coming out. Turtles like to dive into it from the top, dive into the stream, get thrown helter-skelter. And we know they enjoy the playing because they swim out of it, come around, and go into it again. So they're just playing on it. It's like a little roller coaster. I seen the monk seals do the same thing.
Have you tried doing the roller coaster, or do divers try it?
What I do when I have students, I jealously avoid it. I've done it. I can ride it, but I know what to expect. And I got a lot of dives behind me. One or two things will happen to most divers. Either the current will slam them down into the ground. That's the good outcome. Or it will shoot them up like a Polaris rocket to the surface. And if you're not quick-witted enough to not hold your breath, you can end up with pretty serious embolism. So
That's a pretty intense outflow.
But right in between the two, there's sort of a null spot, and you can go in there and find some really nice shells. Away from that area and further out to sea, you get into spots where most people don't dive because you need to have better than average air consumption or larger than average cylinders or both in order to get out that far, spend some time there, and then get back. So that's where you start to see a lot of these more exotic slugs. This guy is called Shaun the Sheep. And it's about a quarter of an inch in long diameter. And they only live on this particular algae. And so what you do is you look for the algae, and then you start looking for Shaun the Sheep. This is it's called a four-spine slug. Most people just call it that little yellow thing. You can see from the side, this is not Monastery Beach. You can see from the size of the grains of sand about how big that thing is. It's about long dimension, it's about 1/8 of an inch long. So the key there is actually seeing it. So you're looking for a flash of yellow and then look close.
Did you photograph that with special equipment, or did you just crop in after taking the picture?
I used the 105mm macro, and then I did some cropping.
Okay, thank you.
Most of the macro images that you see are. I should have started this one. When I started diving, I started using a point and shoot.
Mhm.
And I still have the point and shoot, but most of the time it doesn't work for me. So now I have a Nikon D850. So
Okay.
that's a big boy camera. I've got it housed in a Nauticam housing.
Mhm.
I suffer the problem of which lens do I put in, the macro or the wide angle?
Sure,
Whichever one you put in, you'll be guaranteed the subjects are for the other lens.
right.
I was on a dive trip with a professional photographer, happened to be, and I saw how he solved it. He had two setups, and his wife was his assistant. She carried the other rig,
Yeah.
and so he would have both.
Well, that's what you need as a dive Sherpa.
Yeah, yeah. This is now I'm not sure if these red spotted nudibranchs ever really have red spots. I've never seen them with red spots. I always see them with sort of a maroonish to bluish spot, but that's your thing. I can make it red. I have Photoshop and Lightroom also, but I try not to do that. This is a spot we're not supposed to dive, but we do anyway. It's called the Navy tugboat. What it is it's a tugboat that's on two sets of horizontal concrete pylons. And it's used by the Navy to practice how to rig a sunken ship to raise it. So when they're there, they raise it and lower it and raise it and lower it. when they're not there, the divers can descend on it. There's a mooring there that is technically a Navy mooring, but we go out there anyway. So this is a shot of the pilot house from off the bow. Lots of things live there, even though the habitat keeps moving. I found a family of sharks there one day. This guy lives in adjacent to the concrete piling, and he's a big sucker. It's a yellow margin moray eel. A little bit further up the coast is a spot called Pinnacles, and this can only be reached by boat. And I found this really big hermit crab. This guy must be 6 to 8 inches across. Sometimes we get to see whales. I've never seen a whale underwater though. Hear them all the time, but never see them. Further up the coast, there's a black rock on the surface. That's called Black Rock Dive Site. It's got a underneath the tip, it's all hollowed out, so it makes a nice overhang. And you can find a lot of crustaceans and mollusks and stuff like that. These guys are called 7-11 crabs because they have the 7 spots. And I don't know where the 11 comes from, but that's the name. This is 2 caves that are adjacent to each other. They're called, obviously, twin caves. Honu is Hawaiian for green turtle. There's a site outside of the Waianae Marina that's called 2 minutes. It's called 2 minutes because that's how long it takes to go from the marina to the site. And the boat operators love it because it's 2 minutes back. And they don't have to use much fuel, and they don't have to do much driving. But there are some good things to see on occasion. And this was a spotted eagle ray that came screaming by. Now I'm all the way around the tip of the island, and I'm back on what we call a North Shore, which starts in the town of Haleiwa. And the Haleiwa Trench looks like a backhoe dug it out. The reason it looks like that is that's how it got formed. It was dug out during World War II as a spot to hide submarines. So one side, this side, is an artificial wall that goes down over 100 feet. On the other side of the trench, it's a more sloping natural coral lava wall. And you walk out to this from the shore. The walk is annoying because it's a very uneven footing as you go over little clumps of coral that have been eaten away by some spiny urchins. And then there are other spiny urchins that are in the holes that if you fall into, you get stabbed by them. So you gotta spend a lot of time watching where you walk out. So you get out to about your thigh in depth, put your fins on at that point, swim about 10 more yards, and now it's 80 feet down. So you just hit this dugout wall. And there's all sorts of stuff along the side. These are imperial nudibranchs. You always see them linked up in pairs. Continuing around and just past Waimea Bay is a spot we call 3 tables because there are 3 lava outcroppings that look like little mesas. And depending on what the tide is, you'll see the 3 tables. or not. And nice dive site. Every year it changes because the winter water always changes what happens with the sand. Right now, it's a pain in the butt to walk out of because the slope out is really aggressive, especially for old guys like me. And I won't dive it anymore unless I got somebody who's agreed to help me out. So this is what somewhat of the underwater swim-throughs look like. And a bloody hermit crab living inside a cowrie. This is called a potter's angelfish. This is a spot kind of at the end of driving along the wall. It's called Cathedral. It's a pretty big formation that you can go into. And there are a lot of nudibranchs live around here. Depth here is about 50 feet. So we got our ever popular butterfly fish. These guys are really, really shy, and I consider it a feat to actually catch one and get a picture. It's about protruding out of the lava by about 3/4 of an inch. And swimming crabs, they swim at night. Actually, a swimming nudibranch, the Spanish dancer loves to go swimming. We have two kinds. The yellow margin, this one is the most popular. This ribbon-like mass is how the nudibranch lays its eggs. So this is an egg mass for Spanish dancer nudibranch. And then there's this little nudibranch that lives on the egg mass, eating them. So scale, it's about 1/8 of an inch long. And this mass here is waving back and forth in the current. So the challenge is to focus on it and keep your focus long enough to snap the shot. The next dive site over is called Firehouse. It's a clever name because it's right next to the firehouse. So this is called Papillo. They're actually jacks. And out here, this particular fish goes into a really tasty game fish called a lua. And if you've been around Hawaii, you see a lot of fishing rods that are stuck in the sand and nobody attending them and a bell attached. That's trying to catch what these guys are when they grow up. This is about 1/2 an inch long. It's called a gold lace nudibranch. Very pretty. This is what I looked him up, and his name is called a short-bodied blenny. He's about 1/2 an inch long. Well, 1/2 an inch what is protruding, and another one of the Spanish dancers. We have white-tip reef sharks on that side of the island as well. Then you get to Sharks Cove, a very, very popular dive site. It's sort of the summertime training site. In the winter, you can't even think of diving. You'll have about 12-foot waves coming over. All the rocks get rearranged every year by the winter surf. And so the first dive of the year is trying to figure out how to get back down to the beach again, because everything's different every year. This is the cove. If you come out to the cove and go deep, you get to areas that have a lot of cup coral. If you go left, you can go to Firehouse. If you go to the right, you get into another cove and then yet another cove. And that's where most of my friends and I go, because we have the ability to stay out there long enough. You can also, instead of getting in from the beach, get in through a hole in this reef. It's called the elevator shaft. And you just drop into the hole one at a time. It's exciting. This is the cup coral that I mentioned. And we've been watching this guy for over 5 years. He's living in the same spot. Conger eel, they come out at night. And he's got Hawaii cleaner shrimp, which are these guys. And then banded coral shrimp, which are these guys. And they live in a hole with them. Nice shot of a slipper lobster. They, like most lobsters, look like they're built backwards. So this looks like it should be its rear end. It's not. This is a purple leaf scorpion fish. And we have monk seals out there too. This guy was following me and my dive buddy through the whole dive, playing peekaboo with us. And that's the end of my tour around Hawaii, at least around Hawaii. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
You have some amazing pictures. Thank you for sharing all those with us. I did have 2 questions. One of them is, Oahu's the most populous of the Hawaiian Islands. Can you talk about how difficult it is to get parking at the, place you'd want to get in on most of the things that you showed, both like on a weekday as well as on a weekend?
Sure. Parking in Hawaii is nutty. The easiest parking spot seems to be next to the no parking allowed signs. The way we solve that problem is we go early. We get to the site we want to dive from like about 6:30 to 7 in the morning, and there's no problem with getting parking at that time.
Mm-hmm.
If you wait to 8, likely that you won't get any parking at all.
Wow. So like if you want to go at 11, you're just out of luck, is that right?
Pretty much. It depends on what else is going on.
Yeah.
Traffic is miserable. And
Yeah.
if you have any activities going on, the traffic just jams up. So and the key is really get there early.
Yeah.
Are most of the people that are taking up the parking spots, is it a lot of divers or is it a lot of just general tourists that are out kind of driving around, exploring, going to the beaches and stuff like that?
Once you get to about 8 o'clock in the morning, what you start to pick up are first snorkelers, and then people are just coming out to lay out on the beach and walk through the shallows. So those are mostly the tourists, also the snorkelers. During the weekday, you get a little bit more grace because the weekend working people in Hawaii can't come out, go diving, so you do better with parking during the week. You can probably still get a decent parking spot by 8 o'clock in the morning. But
During
then
the week.
you just start getting the tourists because it's a very popular tourist destination.
Sure. Can
So
you
you have
compare
2 questions.
Can you compare the quality of the diving on the 4 major Hawaiian islands and where Oahu fits in terms of ranking?
No, it's all subjective.
Mhm.
Let's see. I've gone diving on Hawaii Island and on Maui.
Okay.
The geologically, Hawaii Island, the Big Island, is the newest island, so
Right.
you have the most coral, and it can make driving around the islands this way, always going over bridge after bridge after bridge. It hasn't eroded down yet, and so the sites can be challenging to get to.
Hmm.
There's plenty of parking if you can negotiate driving over the lava.
Yeah.
Because there's not as much scuba diving, there's more greater variety of fish population.
Mm.
Right. Maui is sort of kind of in between the two, between the Big Island and Hawaii. It's the next most eroded area. Actually, geologically, Maui, Molokai, Kolave, Lanai are the same landmass. It's just been flooded, so you only see the tips of those 4 islands.
Mm.
You know that because the depth in the center of those 4 is around 500 feet,
Mm.
where the depth outside the perimeter is in the thousands.
Okay.
Oahu, the way I would characterize it is nobody comes to Oahu to go diving.
Right.
Come to Oahu for something else and then go diving. I dive Oahu because I live here.
Yeah.
It's easy. Less good visibility because there's more urban growth and more runoff from all sorts of sources. A lot of aggravation with people who are trying to keep you from getting to the seashore, claiming that they can control right of access when they can't, but
Yeah.
they do anyway.
Yeah.
They lock gates and stuff like that. A lot more known dive sites, I would say, on Oahu.
Hmm.
The further you can get from the shore, the better visibility. Same by you.
Yeah.
I don't know if I answered your question. but
Yeah, it's great. I have heard that Oahu's in some ways a lot easier to live on just because it has a lot more of the amenities compared to the other Hawaiian islands. Is that the reason you moved there?
The reason I moved there is my wife told me that's where I was moving.
Oh,
The
okay.
reason she moved there, she moved before me. I said I could join her if I'd like.
Yeah.
The reason she moved there is because of cultural amenities that you have.
Yeah.
We don't have terrific amenities compared to San Francisco, or
Right.
certainly not New York, but you get some of the touring shows will come through. We
Yeah.
have a symphony and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So there's more of that cultural amenities.
Right.
I avoid Waikiki like the plague. About the only time I'm in Waikiki is when I'm hosting visitors who want to see it.
Do you live in the city of Honolulu or outside it?
The entire island of Oahu is Honolulu County.
Right.
So it's all one administration.
But do you live in the city area or outside the city area?
I live outside on the windward side in the town of Kailua.
Okay.
It's adjacent to a predominantly native local area, Waimanalo, and Kaneohe Bay on the other side,
Hmm.
Marine Corps bases.
Hmm.
I'm retired military, so the profusion of military support,
Hmm.
commissaries, exchanges, medical, make this island very attractive to me.
Hmm.
Most of the decent medical care is on Oahu.
Hmm.
If you have a serious problem on the other islands, they fly you to Oahu.
Right.
That's where the big hospitals are.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, that's the way it is. If I had my druthers, I'd live on the Big Island.
Hmm.
Anyone else?
Is most of the diving shore diving, or what's the mix between kind of like shore versus boat divings, and what's kind of like the logistics? Is there a fair number of like dive shops around for either renting gear or getting fills or stuff like that, or is it kind of you just got one or two and that's about it?
No. There is 3 main locations for dive boats. One is loading off of a public ramp, and that's on the very southern tip near Hanama Bay, kind of where I started the journey in today's briefing. The other is, I showed you the Koala Pipe. That's adjacent to the boat channel into Koala Marina, and that's where most of the dive boats are located. And then over on the Waianae side, I think there's still 2 dive boats that operate out of there. There used to be more, but there aren't anymore. Kind of with COVID, they kind of petered out and never got reconstituted. So a lot of dive boats to choose from in the center of Oahu, right outside, just north of Waikiki. If you're a tourist, that's perfect for you because the dive shop will meet you at the boat or pick you up at a hotel. With all, they'll provide all the gear. Typical cost for a tourist dive excursion is like about $150, everything included. 2-tank dive. And if you're a tourist, you can go on 2 or 3 of those 2-tank dives and never go to the same site twice. So you don't need much more than that. Locals, about most of the local diving on dive boats is done by guys like me who are independent instructors and taking our private students. So what I do there is I buy the seats wholesale, and then that's worked into whatever I'm charging my customers. Wholesale seat price runs about $40. You can see the margin that's there. Yeah. A lot of dive shops. They got dive shops that are exclusively Japanese, catering to Japanese tourists. We've got dive shops that are multilingual, and we've got a lot of dive shops that are catering to travelers from, we get it from Canada, Europe, and a little from the States and California.
Do you dive year round?
Yes. But the location shifts. This is the cusp month where it's shifting from being diveable on the North Shore and diveable on the South Shore. It flips. It has to do with where the surf comes from. In the winter, the surf's coming out of Alaska and Japan, and you're getting world-class surfing. You have the Pipeline, you have Haleiwa, you have a couple of other really, really famous Waimea Bay and the Beach Boys songs. Where you have good diving, you do not have good diving. I said that wrong. Where you have good surfing, you do not have good diving, and vice versa. There are no real dive reports, they're the surf reports. So you bring up the surf report and look for the inverse. So what's happening now is it's shifting from the surf coming into the north to the surf dying away on the south. So all the south side sides start to open up now. And it doesn't matter if you're diving from a boat because they get out of the surf line. It does matter if you're trying to make your entry from the shore. On the south side, you can't do it in the summer months because the swell is too big on the south side. And you cannot get into the water safely on the north side during the winter. So we have this shift in where local diving goes. And the shift period is sort of like November through April. That's sort of the seasonal shift. So November through April is our winter, and that's south side diving. All the rest of the year is north side diving.
Okay.
What's water
Interesting.
temperature like year round?
Water temp,
Yeah, what's that like year round?
78, 79.
That's pretty comfortable.
But it is. When I moved down from the Bay Area, I lived in Danville. When I moved down from the Bay Area, I was doing all my diving in board shorts, just the baggy swim trunks. And after a year or so, I graduated to a 3 mil wetsuit, then a 5 mil wetsuit. And now I'm kind of gritting it out. I'm using a 3 mil wetsuit maybe without a vest. The water
dry
that
suits?
I did.
No dry suits?
Nobody I've never seen anybody in a dry suit out here.
Okay. I wouldn't think so.
It doesn't mean that they don't. It just means I've never seen them. We have some crazy people who love their rebreathers and like to stay for hours and hours, and they get cold. So dry suit might be what they use. I'm one of these. I don't believe in rebreathers yet.
So I had I had a question about diving like around Pearl Harbor is like forbidden, right?
Forbidden.
Yeah. Like some of the World War II wrecks, like in like Pearl Harbor area.
You're not allowed to dive in Pearl Harbor. If you try, they'll catch you because they're concerned about terrorist attack from the water. So they have all sorts of things in place to make it difficult, and it's illegal. And they will find you. Outside of Pearl Harbor, on either side, are very uninteresting walls. They just don't seem to have very interesting things to dive. As you keep going around a little bit further away from Pearl Harbor, you get into some of the sites I showed you. Koala Basin on one side. The tugboat is outside of Pearl Harbor, for example. Anything else? Well, you should come dive in Hawaii. It's a nice place. Come, be a tourist, spend your money, then go home.
I certainly do want to get out there to go diving at some point. Kind of hop around the islands a bit. That certainly would be fun.
Okay, well.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I missed a few minutes, so sorry if this is already addressed. Have you been doing any tiger shark diving out there, or specifically looking for them, or see them just inadvertently here and there?
I keep waiting to get a tiger shark in the water, so I can get a picture of it. I've got a buddy who did. It took him all day sitting in one spot where they had reported seeing a tiger shark before it came around again. There are accessible from boats, very deep dives where tiger sharks are much more common, but now I'm talking around 200 feet. I've been on those dives, they're really nice, really big fish because nobody gets to them to go fishing. But you need special training and equipment to be able to do that safely. Tiger sharks don't, I mean, I'll never say never. Tiger sharks don't bother scuba divers. Most shark bites, in my opinion, are mistaken identities. Sharks hunt for seals and turtles, and people dangling arms and legs off of a surfboard look like seals and turtles to the sharks, which hunt from the bottom looking up at silhouette. And they come up, usually take one bite, don't like the way it tastes and go away. They don't sit there continually chomping on a victim. Most people survive shark attacks because they can get the bleeding stopped and get the medical help. There are people who lose limbs, but that happens worldwide. I looked at the statistics once, kind of worldwide, all sharks, about 25 people a year worldwide would die from shark attacks, and over 1 million sharks a year that die from people attacks. So you look at the balance.
Yeah, I see occasionally Bruce Watkins, who's been a speaker a couple of times for the club, moved to the Big Island from California, and he does a lot of tiger shark diving on the Big Island, or he sees them on a regular basis. So I'm just curious about how popular or how often you would see them without looking for them on Oahu, relative to I think Maui is also a popular place for them. I just hadn't heard much about Oahu and how often you see one just sort of swim on by. So I was curious. Sounds like not very often.
I can tell you, my wife and I, when we dove Honoko Harbor outside Kona, we saw 3 tiger sharks in one dive. I guess they're considered common there because a lot of the fishermen are, cleaning their fish in that harbor. So there's a lot of blood coming out of it.
Yeah, and I think that's where Bruce posts a lot. We're gonna be back in the Big Island a little later this year, and maybe I'll get a chance to dive there and get some shots. We'll see.
My wife says she does not want to dive that again. That was too many sharks on one dive.
There are a couple operators out here that take people out on caged shark dives. Usually go out about 3 miles offshore. They chum, they go to the same spot. The sharks are all habituated to it. And you can get some nice photos of sharks if that's what you want to do. Most of the time, we've seen ocean white tips and Galapagos come cruising by. They're just kind of passing through. The last time there was a big to-do about someone spotting a great white shark, it turned out to be a mako. It's not to say that a mako is not something that's respectable, but it wasn't a great white either. I love taking pictures of sharks. Sharks don't really want to come close to people. They don't like the noise. They don't like, if you're taking pictures, they don't like the electronic jolt that they get. So they kind of stay away from people. Scuba divers. I went diving up off of the Farallon Islands for a weekend.
No, the cage diving operation out there for great whites or outside cage.
Well, this was in about 1997. It was one of the Live Aboard the Pacific, something or other boat.
Star.
Yeah, they went out it was a weekend at the Farallons. And the ornamental T-shirt that we got had a dive flag on the left breast with a shark bite out of one corner. But they were set up for minimizing the chance of an encounter with a great white. That was not the objective of the dive. They had the boat set up with a bridle veil, so that's a line running from bow to stern under the hull. So you would do a forward roll into the water, immediately get under the boat on the line to have the boat's silhouette mask your silhouette. And never come up by yourself. What bad thing to do on that particular dive site. We never saw sharks. We weren't trying to either. It was beautiful diving.
Did you go in the summer?
I think it was. I know they timed it so that we would minimize the encounter with the shark.
Mhm.
I know my daughter is the one who talked me into it, and then she got self-motivated to stay out of the water. So, go figure. The floor of the ocean just carpeted in strawberry anemone.
Mm.
Feels that are not afraid of anybody because they almost never see a diver, so they come out and pose for you. Frankly, beautiful diving,
I've heard.
but cold.
Any other questions? If not, thank you again, Arnie. Appreciate giving the presentation to us. It was awesome to see another island out in Hawaii and what it has to offer. So appreciate it.
Thank you. Glad you enjoyed it.
Thank you.
You have great pictures.
Well, thank you for that too.
Yeah, it's hard. It's
Well,
this is
she
a
didn't
tough
see the
crowd to
thousands that
impress.
I threw
But,
away.
you've done it.
So, I'm sorry. I didn't hear what you said.
I said this is a tough crowd to impress with photos, but you've succeeded at doing it.
Well, that's very kind of you to say that.
You've got a lot of photos stuff we have not seen before.
Okay, I should ask you on the tester, who can say that?
I can. Hama nuku nuku apua'a.
Perfect.
Wow,
Pretty good,
impressive.
Jim.
Tim gets the prize for tonight.
Is it the same fish as the Picasso triggerfish?
Yeah.
Just a different name? Yeah.
The Hawaiian name for the
reason.
Picasso triggerfish, I
Okay,
guess.
got it.
Yeah.
This translates out literally to pig-faced triggerfish.
Okay.
I think I'll say the translated name.
Yep.
Awesome.
Actually, the Hawaiian names on fish are fascinating in and of themselves. If the Hawaiians gave a name to the fish, that fish has its own Hawaiian name, it was a fish that they ate. If it was a fish that they never ate, it's just called fish. AI. They didn't bother giving it a name.
Why give it a name if it has no value to
There
you?
you go.
Interesting.
Thank you again. And with that, we'll switch over to our mini comps.